Do it.
All right. Oop, I got to.
Ariana, there are a bunch of other type of Latinos here. There's Colombians in here, Mexicans. What else do we have in here? That's it? Everybody's Mexican or Colombian?
I guess so.
Eddie's Cuban, right?
Eddie's
Eddie's
Cuban.
Cuban. That's
Yes.
true. Tim is Vietnamese. You got Puerto Rico in the house. There you go. So it's everybody.
I love
Good.
it.
All right. All right, it's good to go. If you want to go ahead and get started.
And everybody always
run
on Hispanic time.
on Hispanic time. I'm oh, what happened?
Right up to-
James, can you pull up the slide deck when you get a chance?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Good to go.
All right, and then we're gonna share the live stream link in the chat in Slack.
Let me grab that link.
Thank you. And then I guess we can also put it on in the chat in here. Did you want me to start us off, James, or you got it?
Yeah, go ahead. Let me grab the link. Chat. Here we go. And then you said inside of general.
Mhm.
There we go. All right. All the links have been shared. Let's start.
Great, thank you.
All
All
right.
right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are Hispanic Hackers. Originally, you will see a date of March 23rd on these slides, and that's because we were supposed to have our event last week, but all of the board members had stuff going on, and we just couldn't get it all together. So thank you for rearranging your schedules to meet us today instead. Next slide, please. We are graciously hosted and sponsored by Capital Factory. It's located in Austin, and they allow us to put on these events every month. They pay for our Zoom membership. James, please feel free to add on in case I do forget some of the verbiage that's specific to their sponsorship.
They also give us access to their space if we ever want to do anything there in-house, or if you ever have questions about wanting to become a member, feel free to reach out to us, and we can help you connect with whatever you need.
Yep. All right. All right. So today's event is going to be a panel style event with myself, Laura Evans, and Laura Hoyas. And we are two Latinas that work in tech currently. We have a list of questions, and then we want to open the floor for any of our members and guests tonight to ask us questions. So please feel free to post those questions in the chat, or whenever the Q&A opens up, then we can ask those questions as well. You can ask those questions as well. James will be our host, and yeah. All right, about Hispanic hackers. So We are a group of software hardware engineers of Hispanic ethnicity that showcase our knowledge and experience to build our professional network. If you're not Hispanic, that's completely fine. This is a great place to get to know more Hispanic hackers, engineers, or people in the tech space. And also allyship is, so important in our community. So we have Eddie Reyes, who is our founder, James Lockwood, and myself, Laura Evans, Timothy Huang, and Laura Hoyas is on the board. Our goals for our community are to be advancing the knowledge in the technology space. What we do is we hold monthly events and we feature different topics of, like tonight, whether it's personal experiences, software and hardware technologies. We do a lot of whiteboarding and interview practice throughout the year. We connect with companies. A lot of our members work for large FANG companies as well as smaller startups. Some of them even have their own businesses that they started. We try to create a space to facilitate more of a community of Hispanics in tech. And, we use this space to make friends, to network. We haven't done it too much this year, but last year and the year before, we do a lot of community outings. Back when I lived in Austin, every Sunday was fun day. So we went paddleboarding, we went to go eat tacos, you name it, we were doing it. So yeah, we hope to bring back those in-person events soon.
Yes.
And yeah, so ways to get involved. We have a Slack group, a meetup, and you can see the QR code there on the corner of the slide. We're always looking for extra hands on the board if you want to come and join, want to showcase any marketing skills, social media, coding skills, interview tips, anything that even if you just want to host an event for a month, that's perfectly fine. Pretty much if you just want to get involved, the way to get a hold of us is through Meetup, our Slack channel, email, and we'll share all those resources in the next slide.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, in one of these slides. Our contact information is in one of these slides. But right now we are going to take a photo. We like to do these at every event. So if you don't mind, please put on your cameras if you are able to and willing, so we can take a little photo of our March event. Hey, Eddie.
All right.
Ooh, Kiara, I am loving the colors. Yes. Yes.
All right. 1, 2, 3. All right, let me grab one more. Let me save it real quick. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Boop. All right. Thank you all.
Woo-hoo.
Okay. Sharing screen again. All right.
All right. So our next event, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on the picture. And our next event is April 27th. It's going to be a LinkedIn and resume prep. You can hear more about it, see who's going to, if we're going to have any guest speakers or anything like that, which we normally do for these types of events. We'll reach out to some of the companies that we've worked with and get their HR people to come in and help us and give us, real life advice and tips and everything like that. So more to follow, but by visiting our meetup site, you'll definitely be up to date on our next couple events, probably.
Okay.
Here we go. So this is all the ways that you guys can find us. There is the Slack channel, our website. We have Meetup, We're on LinkedIn, Facebook. We're now officially on Instagram, thanks to Laura.
Woo.
What else are we on, Laura? Anything else?
So we are mainly on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I'm working on getting us on TikTok.
Oh, there we go. That's new. Excited for that. But yeah, cool.
All right.
All right, so this part before we get started with the actual event, I don't think we have any announcements or upcoming events outside of the one that I just mentioned, but we always like to ask who in the audience is looking for a job, and then afterwards we'll ask who is hiring, whether it's their own company or the company that they're working for is hiring. So just by a show of hands, if anyone wants to let us know that they're looking for a job, what kind of job you're looking for, and where. See a hand raised for Chris. You can go ahead and unmute and let us know.
Hi, I'm new to the group, and although I'm only beginning to learn HTML, I'm really at the very beginning stages. I'm without work now for a little over a month, I think, and my background is in music and law. I have no idea what job I can do. That said, I'm looking for something. I don't know what it is. So,
Okay. Where are you located, Chris?
I'm in South Austin.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, once we get to the part of who's hiring, maybe something will pique your interest, and you can go ahead and connect with that person. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us, and welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Next, we have Kiara.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I didn't realize I was not on mute this entire time. I'm so sorry. But well, my name is Kiera Ortiz Cedeño, and I'm in East Austin. I was previously working as a product manager, and I feel very comfortable doing that. I also feel very comfortable doing UX design. I have a basic ability to code with like AI and deep learning. I'm not like the world's best hacker, but like I did like some certificates on Coursera, and I have a few portfolio projects in AI. So any of those three things I would feel comfortable with. I would be a very good PM, a pretty good UX designer, and an okay like AI coder person. Any of those like definitely hit me up because I'm looking for something.
Great, thank you so much. And how long, how many years would you say you have in PM experience?
About 4 years.
4 years? Okay, perfect.
And I used to be a product manager at Visa, like the debit cards and stuff like that.
Okay, awesome.
I'll mute myself now.
Thank you, Kiara. Thanks so much for joining us. I have a hand up from Jonathan.
I'm sorry, I'm just like in and out. I'm doing Uber as we speak as well, but y'all are perfectly safe. I have about a year and a half of experience into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm actually really head into JavaScript. Currently looking for a job. Anyone that's willing to actually kind of, I don't know what the right word is, help. Along with mentor me while I'm on hands-on as well. But I mean, going into the deep end is also fine as well. I can swim, I can manage. So yeah, if I mean UX design as well, front end, wanting to dig myself deeper into back end as well as a full stack developer. But I mean, just my foot into the door is what I'm looking for.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry, just in the chat. All right. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for joining us, and please drive safe. um, Now we'll switch it over to whoever is hiring. So, do we have anyone in the group who is actually hiring, either for their own company or the company that they work for, or they just know? Got a hand up from Eddie.
Hey, folks. So I work at Meta, parent company of Facebook, and yeah, they're hiring a bunch of people. So for all kinds of stuff. I work in an area called production engineering, and there's definitely opportunities in that realm. There's even a program called Discover Production Engineering for folks who have done other kinds of careers, or other kinds of development, and might be interested in production engineering. Um, if anyone just wants to like talk to me about what it is that I do, or what it is that that we work on, and what it's like, I'm happy to chat with any of you. Somebody mentioned that they're looking for mentorship. Hit me up. We can chat, and we can talk about what you want to accomplish. Where you're at, and yeah, happy to help anybody, whether it's to apply at Meta or otherwise. I have to go dig up my LinkedIn link, but I'll drop it in the chat.
All right. Thank you, Eddie. Thanks so much. Anyone else in the group know of someone who's hiring?
Yes. So I work at Apple and I work with the Spanish Siri team, and we are also hiring Spanish Siri analysts. So if anybody is interested or wants to learn more about the role, you're welcome to send me over a message on our Slack, and I'll be happy to give you more information.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. As for me, I work for Amazon, so we are hiring a bunch of people all the time, all kinds of roles, specifically looking for software engineers at all levels. I will make it a point to see if we have any programs, much like Meta, to see if we can get just some more information. So I promise that I will look that up for next month. But yeah, so there's not any current roles open on my specific team, but I definitely know of sister teams that are looking for engineers, or actually looking for program managers as well. I work primarily in the Alexa space with Alexa devices. So if you're interested in that, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn as well, and we'll be posting our LinkedIn links later on today. Kiara, did you have a question?
Even though I just said like I'm looking for a job, I'm part of another group. It's called the Austin Urban Technology Movement, and they help Hispanic and Black people get jobs in tech. So they have their own special job board with a ton of jobs. So they have like a bunch of tech boot camps, and they're in Spanish and English. And then they have partnerships with like National Instruments, Intel, and IBM and Google and a bunch of other places, and they help you get jobs. So like if you look at the Austin Urban Technology Movement job board, they have a lot of jobs posted for their members. And if you wanted to improve your skills, they have classes in Spanish and English for like UX and software and AI and blockchain. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kiara. We have worked with Autumn in the past, and we're huge fans of what they do in the community. So, but thank you so much for bringing that up and sharing that information with everyone.
Another plug for Autumn, you folks that are new to technology, that's a really awesome place to start, and they have resources to help you ramp up and learn stuff, as well as pair you with opportunities. So echoing that, please do check them out. They do really great work.
So I'm at UT, and I know that we have multiple job boards there, and I know they're hiring software developers, front end, back end. I know they have project manager positions, UI, UX, you name it. They've got like thousands of jobs that they're trying to hire for. So I can get our link and share that in the group chat as well.
Great, thanks so much, James. Anyone else looking or offering jobs? All right, moving on.
There's a post a link in. Nice. All right.
I'm gonna do that now, actually. So if everyone wants to share their LinkedIn now, I guess we created a space for it, so.
Just want to invite anybody who hasn't joined our Slack channel yet. We have like a specific chat there for job postings, and that's where we announce our events as well. So welcome to check that out as well.
Trying to get to LinkedIn. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So we have some resources here. Oops.
Yeah, we can just have the resources in the background while we start the
Okay.
panel. That's fine.
Perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the main event of our night. We're going to have a panel of the Lauras here tonight talking about the struggles and the experiences that they've had in tech as a woman, as a Hispanic woman, and what they've done to overcome struggles and how they've improved and what they're up to now and how and just resources and things that they may be able to share with the group. So we already had a short introduction. There we go. And let's go ahead and get started. So first question is, what was your perception of the tech industry before getting into it?
I can start with that. I apologize, guys, for not being able to turn on my camera. I got stuck behind a moving train, but I'll be home in a couple of minutes. I had this perception that tech was very difficult. I had never thought about the fact that there are jobs in tech that are non-tech roles where you can grow in your career and still do pretty well. And growing up, I struggled a lot with like math and science classes. And I was under the impression that if you were not good at those things, that you would not be able to understand or do well in tech at all. And now that I'm working in tech and I'm in a non-tech role, I see how wrong I was. But when I speak to people about it, I hear the same sentiment as well. People that don't know much about working in tech think that it's very like math related or numbers, or that if you didn't do well in those subjects growing up, that you're not going to do well in a tech role.
Mm-hmm.
For me, my perception was that it wasn't for people like me, that tech was for white males. That's something that they did. It wasn't something that anyone in my family did. It wasn't anything that I was capable of doing, just because I didn't know anyone. That was when I grew up. So I grew up in New York City, and I grew up in Queens, and I just didn't think that was something that people in Manhattan did. So what that means to anybody who's not from New York is like that's what like the rich white people did, right? And the same thing as Laura said. It was if you're good at math, that's the only way that you can become a software engineer is if you're good at math, and math wasn't my strong suit growing up. So I was like, it never even honestly crossed my mind until being in tech didn't cross my mind until about 2.5 years ago. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, what was your background career-wise before coding or before being in tech?
You can start, Laura, if you like. Then I'll
Okay.
go next.
Yeah, sure. So my background, I was in the military. I was in the military for almost 14 years, and I was in law enforcement. And then the last few years of my career in the military, I was in HR. So nothing at all related to tech. I was kind of like the techie person in my family, which just meant that I could like hook up a TV and like look stuff up, like flights and stuff online, but I couldn't tell you anything about coding. I didn't know anything about anything up until literally 2.5 years ago. Almost 3 years now. But yeah, so coding is relatively new for me.
For me, I grew up really being interested in politics and law. I graduated with my bachelor's in sociology, and the work that I did before joining Apple was at different nonprofits working on topics related to immigration and educational opportunities and educational access to minorities. And I never imagined myself in a career in tech just because, as I mentioned earlier, I thought I had to have a skill set that I didn't possess. And what led me to join Apple was the pandemic and looking for a different job opportunity. But I've been there for a year and a half now, and it's changed my view on tech, working in tech, and I'm definitely a lot more interested in staying in it now. It's led me to become more curious as well, and I'm currently doing a boot camp to learn full stack development. It's my first experience with coding or anything like that, and that's also been very insightful. But it definitely just getting a job in tech in general like sparked my curiosity and wanting to understand all these different positions, all the different work that you could do within tech.
Very cool. All right. So, where are you now, and why did you choose your current position?
I can take that Laura first.
Sounds good.
All right. So right now I actually work as a product manager for Alexa devices. And what I do is I launch new Alexa devices in different global marketplaces. However, I've only been in that position for the last 7 months now. Before that, I was a software engineer for AWS, and I chose once I got it. So, okay, let me backtrack. Once I got out of the military and I actually learned to code through a coding boot camp as a transition plan when I was leaving the military. It was always my target. My target was to work at Amazon. I don't know why. I really just wanted to work with Alexa. I don't know. But yeah, I just, and working backwards from that target, I networked my way in. I actually don't have a bachelor's degree in computer science or a bachelor's degree at all. I'm actually still going to school. Everyone else I know and everyone else I work with has like a master's degree, or at least the CS bachelor's degree, but your girl does not. But we still make it work. More to follow on how that works. But yeah, I started Amazon as a coder. And then I knew that I could do more. I felt that coding, at least at Amazon to me, felt very transactional, and I didn't get to see the bigger picture of what it was that I was making and how it was affecting customers. So I wanted that bigger picture, and I wanted to really own a product and get it from inception into customers' hands and kind of really learn what that process was like. So that's why I decided to go into program product management now. Yeah, and it's been a great decision. I really, the military taught me to really handle a lot of different moving parts at the same time, and that's what basically my job is now at actually a much smaller scale than what I'm accustomed to. So it's a very, it has its moments where it's difficult, but it is for the most part for me fairly easy to bring in a lot of my military experience into management. Yeah.
I love that because it's true. There's people that come into tech from all different backgrounds who may think what they did prior to that might not be as helpful, but you'd be surprised to see how much you can utilize all of those skills that you have and how useful they are in tech. So thank you for sharing that, Laura. In my case, I work at Apple. I work with the Spanish Siri team, and my job is focused on reviewing Siri interactions with our Spanish speakers in Mexico and correcting and grading those interactions so that we can work on making Siri more accessible in Spanish, widening her understanding of the different vocabulary we have among our Spanish speaking countries, as well as the pronunciation and how it varies among different people from different places. And it's a very exciting job for me because, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't have to know any really tech sort of skills to start the job. I've definitely learned a lot of it while working in the position, but it gives me an opportunity to do the kind of work that I used to do prior, which was focus on helping the Hispanic community and being involved in ways in which we kind of expand the resources we have. And I like the fact that while I'm one person from a very, very huge group of people doing this work, I feel like I'm making a positive impact in making Siri and iPhones more accessible to Spanish speakers, and that it's not just a tool or a resource that can be utilized in English. So it feels rewarding to do the work, and I also enjoy the fact that I get to do my job in Spanish. It's strengthened my grammatical skills in Spanish. I've learned new words. I've been able to interact with Hispanics from all over the world, and it's been a really awesome experience.
That's super cool. I'm working on learning Spanish. I'm not good at it. So how did you learn how to code?
So for me, as I mentioned earlier, I'm in the beginning stages. Just went through HTML, CSS, and just entered JavaScript, which has definitely been a shock to the system compared to how easier it felt to do the HTML and the CSS. But it's been really interesting to approach something that I was kind of scared of or thought that was going to be super complicated, and realize that it's just like learning anything else. It has its challenges, but there are ways to make the process easier. And I've learned to be patient with myself, take it very slow. I'm not in a rush to become like a perfect coder in 3 months or anything like that. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the day when I can say that I'm like officially a coder and know what I'm talking about.
Girl, you do know what you're talking about. You're going to be an amazing coder.
The day's today. You're an official coder.
Yes, you're an official coder today.
Thank you. I appreciate the support.
So for me, I learned to code as a part of my transition from the military. And I remember the day that I got the briefing that was telling me about this particular boot camp. So shout out to Galvanize. That's where I went. That's where James has gone as well. And I remember asking the guy who gave the brief, like, okay, how much math is involved here? Because I literally, when I tell y'all, I knew nothing of coding. I didn't know what the heck coding was. And I was like, all right, how much math is like, do I need to like do mental math really quickly? Because that's not a thing for me. And he was like, no. He's like, it's more logic than math. You really don't have to be good at mental math or anything like that. So I was like, okay, fine. So I decided to try it, and then I was hooked. I started with CSS and HTML, moved on to JavaScript and a couple of the libraries like Angular and React. Then I transitioned more into like creating more of the full stack, so like Node.js and backend stuff, SQL. Afterwards, once I joined Amazon, I learned Java and Python. So all kinds of things all across the spectrum. I learned quickly that coding is really, it's all really the same. It's just a different language. So all the languages are essentially doing the same thing, at least is my belief. Just some are better than others at doing certain things. But but yeah, so learning to code it was the coding, but for me, when I went through Galvanize and I went through the boot camp, I was only female in my class. And although I was used to doing that and being that while in the military, because I went through law enforcement, so there wasn't a lot of females in law enforcement way back in the day. There are a lot more now, and I'm so glad to see that change in the military now. But when I came to the boot camp, I realized that I was the only one yet again. And thankfully, I had a really great group of guys who were very welcoming and didn't treat me any different. But I kind of felt the pressure of having to be just as good as them, and like not slowing the team down or slowing the class down or anything like that. So learning to code was definitely an experience. It was also a cultural shift for me because, and I'll tell you guys a little story. So when I went to go interview at Galvanize for the very first time, it happened to be Halloween. And so I went in business casual, kind of, like slacks and like a blouse, right? Like normal. No, I walked in, elevator doors open. The receptionists are dressed up as fairies. There's a guy on like a skateboard that's dressed up as the Cookie Monster with like a head and like a onesie, the whole nine, right? And the person who is interviewing me is in a Elmo onesie. It's red and furry, and it has the hat and the head thing. And he didn't take it off during the whole time that I was being interviewed, trying to figure out, this technical interview. He didn't take it off and until the very end so that I could see his face. But yeah, so imagine me, a military person for a long time, and I'm supposed to take this seriously. Oh, and by the way, there's like a keg in the corner, and there's like a bar and stuff. And it's just like, okay. So I didn't know what world I had walked into. I didn't know, I didn't know if it was for me, but I'm so glad that I pulled through it, and I grew to love the tech community. I also grew to know the lack of representation in the tech community, and it really created this passion for me to be a part of groups like Hispanic Hackers. And the guys will tell you, so like James and Tim and Eddie. I remember the very first day that I joined Hispanic Hackers, and it happened to be a technical interview practice, a whiteboarding practice session, and seeing everyone in person. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I had stepped into. I was probably like 2 or 3 weeks into my boot camp, but everyone was so welcoming. And here we are, almost 3 years later.
Yep. Wow, the time has flied, right?
I know, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
They've gotten to see your whole progress.
Yeah, they really have. They really, really have.
You've known her from start to where she's at now. She's doing great.
Little baby.
Okay, so what made you decide to join Hispanic Hackers, and then more so the board?
That's a really good question. So I'm very recent. I've been here since October. And for me, I guess throughout my life, I've had different instances in which I've been the only Latina in the room. And it's really helped me appreciate when I can be surrounded by other Latinas, other Latinos, and the importance of community and feeling like you belong. I attended a very white, wealthy university and experienced a lot of the opposite of having community, of feeling like you don't belong, like a place was not created for people like you. So wherever I go, and that's something that I learned from that experience, I try to find community, I try to find like-minded people, and I try to find opportunities where I could feel a bit challenged. So with Hispanic Hackers, I definitely came in not knowing how to code, not being in a technical tech role, but I joined the first event just virtually like you are now. And I really felt connected to the board, and the event was talking about being Latinx in tech. So I really enjoyed that. And then a few days after that, there was like an in-person event, and it was just going to be a time to kind of hang out and play some games. And I said, why not? Like, I definitely had like social anxiety, especially after the pandemic. I think it was my first time like hanging out with a group of people after, this whole pandemic thing, but I kind of like forced myself and my husband to go. And I'm really glad that we did. Everybody has been so welcoming, so nice. I didn't feel like we were strangers. I felt like everybody's just excited to see each other and to welcome us. And when I saw that there was an opportunity to volunteer in different capacities, I volunteered to help out with some of the social media. And that's how I came in and joined the board. It's been a very rewarding experience for me because I feel like I'm in a place in which I belong. I like having the opportunity to learn from people that have been in tech longer, that are doing jobs that I would like to see myself doing in the future, and that I know they are so open and so willing to answer any questions. I remember the second time like we hung out and I had so many questions. Laura was there, James was there too, and I was like, I just don't understand like all the different jobs in tech. Like there's so many things, and I don't get the difference between like, I don't get what UX is. I don't get like all these different languages for coding. And to me, I felt like maybe I'm asking like really dumb questions that you could just kind of Google and I could find out on my own, but I didn't feel like it was received in that way. Like they were so capable of breaking down the smaller things for me, helping me understand maybe in a way that makes sense for me. And I love that. I love that I have the opportunity to connect with people that are so willing to help and teach in that way, even if these things are simple for you or, you've known this for a long time. So I really appreciate that. And I'm very happy to be part of Hispanic Hackers. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all the events we have planned this year. And yeah, that's my answer.
Yay. Oh my God, Laura, I love how you felt joining us, honestly. And I loved when you did, not only because your name is Laura and my name is Laura, right? But you're also Colombian and I'm Colombian. And I was like, what are the odds? What are the odds that there's another Colombian Laura that wants to be in tech, that wants to be on this board with us and help us grow the community? So I kind of touched on why I joined Hispanic Hackers just initially. I was just a member. And then what really got me to be a part of the board over time was, again, just like the lack of representation that I saw once I actually made it into Amazon. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm, again, the only female on my engineering team. Why is this? Why I was the only female in my class. Now I'm the only female in my engineering team, and they don't know how to talk to me. They think that I'm gonna like start crying off of a code review. So like, what's going on? And I figured that Hispanic Hackers, they need a female on their board too, and we have to get a little bit more of the social presence and just create a bigger space for the Latino community, both male and female, binary, non-binary, and everything in between. Like we needed to get more representation of what the real world looks like. So I actually, not to toot my own horn, but to toot my own horn, I actually wrote an article that got published in Fast Company, and the link is on the slide right there. But and it's about diversity in tech. It's about like, if these businesses want to continue to thrive and grow, they need to diversify their products and who they're reaching out to. They need to, if they want to survive as the world gets more and more connected, and as the world keeps growing and technology keeps getting faster and better, it also needs to also get more inclusive, to include more of your customers. That's the only way to truly survive for the long term. So I think a lot of the bigger companies are starting to get into that direction. Even in the last 2 years, I think we've done leaps and bounds of where we were to where we are today. And there's a lot more groups like ours, like Hispanic Hackers, that have gone nationwide, that are, there's Tequeria, there's Latinas in Tech, there's Anita.B. There's a lot of these larger nonprofits that have really made it their mission to affect change when it comes to women in technology, minorities in technology and people of all walks of life in technology. So I figured that being a part of Hispanic Hackers was a way that I could, somehow lend my experience, whether it's as a kick in the butt to, put yourself in the right gear, some motivation, answer questions, just to tell you that, hey, a girl from Queens who doesn't have a bachelor's degree can do it, who really sucks at math, she can do it, then you guys can do it. Whatever you take from it, I just hope that it's great and we all do it because we love it and we care about the Hispanic community in tech. So
Thank you both for sharing that. See, how did COVID affect your career?
So for me, I think if COVID had not happened, it's possible that I would still be like, doing my nonprofit job or kind of doing the other things I had expected for myself and for my career. When I had arrived to Austin, I had applied for everything that I found online. I applied to every single job, whether I was qualified or not. I really needed to be employed. And I had, in that midst, applied to this Apple job, but never heard back. And then right when COVID began, that really affected the work that I was doing with my nonprofit because the work involved doing like monthly trips to Mexico and they closed the border and we couldn't travel to Mexico anymore. So I got a call from Apple and they were hiring for the team and they said, hey, we have your application here from like a few years ago. And would you like to interview for it? And I didn't even remember what I had applied for, but I said yes. And I went through the interview process and I was able to get the job. So it happened sort of by accident, not really like planning it or, it wasn't what I expected, but I'm really glad that it happened the way that it did because I took the chance. I was definitely very scared. I felt that imposter syndrome come through and I felt perhaps that I wasn't qualified because I had that previous kind of mentality, like, wait a second, like my brain is not like a tech brain. I can't imagine myself working, for a company like Apple, but I really learned that that's not necessarily the case. And that's how COVID affected my experience.
For me, COVID was my transformation year. A few months right before COVID hit is when I officially got out of the military. I was halfway through my coding boot camp. I graduated actually like in March of 2020, right when it hit. We had a virtual graduation. And that's when I also started at Amazon. And speaking to Leroy mentioned imposter syndrome, and oh my God, imposter syndrome. So in my quest to getting to Amazon, there were other places that I had interviewed for, applied for, and everything. One of those places was Google. And I actually got to interview for a position at Google without ever really applying. And they called me back, asked me to officially apply. So I was like, okay, so I did. And then they're like, okay, great. We want to schedule the second interview. And guess who never reached back out to schedule the second interview because I was scared? Me. I never reached back out to Google because I was scared. I figured I was like Leroy. Because I didn't think that I was ready. I didn't think that I was good enough to be at Google. I still to this day feel like I may have shot myself in the foot, but not really because everything happens for a reason. And I know that door is always open. But yes, imposter syndrome caused me to not continue on that quest. I did get other job offers from smaller firms, but like I said, ultimately the goal at that time was Amazon, was Alexa, to just be able to work in that space. So for me, COVID honestly allowed me, at the time I was also a military spouse, and my ex-husband was deployed to Germany. So I was literally in the house by myself in Austin with 2 dogs and no one else. So it really allowed me the space to focus 1000% of my time and effort to learning to code, to, on this job hunt to perfect my skills as best I could in that time, and really, see the industry as it was. What I really did was I studied the industry, not just coding, but I studied the industry and the people in the industry. When I first started the coding bootcamp, I didn't even have a LinkedIn. By the time I was done, I had over like 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. And honestly, that is how I got to Amazon, from not knowing nothing from coding, to a software engineering role at Amazon was networking and a whole lot of studying and a whole lot of leak code. But a lot of it was talking to people so that you know how to talk to people when they're in that industry as well.
Very cool. How has your experience working in tech been as a woman and Latina?
So for me, it's been interesting because my specific team is composed of Latinx people, mostly women. So it's been, yeah, I actually don't think I've ever worked in a space with so many Latinx people. And it felt really nice because growing up in New Jersey, while I know Austin is diverse, I was definitely missing that intense diversity that we have in the place where I grew up. And this job and working with a team of Latinx people allowed me the opportunity to see how much diversity there is here and to be in a diverse group of people. In terms of just sort of battling against that imposter syndrome that Laura was mentioning, I felt that my challenges have been less about, confronting biases or things within my role or my team, and more about building the self-esteem and the confidence to believe that I belong to be in the space that I'm in, that I have the capacity to learn things that sound very challenging to me, processes that look very challenging, and that I belong in the space, considering the fact that, as Laura mentioned, I also kind of shared that mindset where when I thought of tech, I just imagined like a white, like rich person. And so making space for myself in this space and reminding myself that I belong there, that I belong to be in this room, having these conversations and having a seat at the table has been more like an internal work for me to get myself there with my self-esteem and my confidence in my abilities as well. I've had to learn how to advocate for myself and talk about the good things, right? The skills that I have, and pick from different experiences that I've had in the past that are not related to tech, but I've definitely been able to apply them in my role and in the work that I do. So it's been more of like an internal work thing for me. But I'm sure that as I navigate or as I transition into other spaces that are not so specific in the sense that the work is in Spanish or the team is like Latinx, there is a possibility that I'm definitely going to experience that shock of being a Latina, of being a woman.
Yeah, I share so much of that you mentioned, Laura, that I've experienced myself. When I first joined my engineering team, it was a lot, y'all. It was a lot to deal with at first, being the only female, and not just in my organization, like in my immediate team, but like just in our sister teams. There really wasn't anyone that was a Latina, much less a female, or a female, much less a Latina, who also might just happen to be a veteran as well, because we come with our own issues after we leave the military that we have to work through and stuff. What I found at first was I kind of felt very alone. And I found myself looking for a Latina mentor, a female mentor on LinkedIn, through Tequeria, through Anita.b. So I used the resources that I had to get the job. Now that you have the job, okay, like there's still a whole lot more that happens if you want to be successful once you're actually in tech. Not only was I learning corporate America and the tech industry, leaving the military, but there was a lot of new vocabulary. There was a lot of culture shift for me that I had to that I had to learn almost to speak another language, not just coding. So having the people skills from my law enforcement career and HR really came in handy. Just being able to talk to people and kind of like bring those walls down really helped. Over time, my engineering teammates got used to my directness from New York. We tend to be kind of direct people sometimes. So I found myself just always being the only female or definitely the only Latina. In my current position now, I deal with a little bit more of, like I said, everyone has a master's degree and they have like this certification and that certification. And I'm just like, yep, I definitely do not. I'm getting there. I have a few classes left and then I'll be done. But not even with my master's, that comes after. So it's just it's interesting for me to see what the technical and hands-on experience that I got from my previous experience and how I can apply it to this. It's just, I wish more people knew that it's possible, and that's what I want to do with Hispanic hackers. And I just wish that more Latinas and more Latinos and everyone really just knew that you are not old enough, or you're not too old. Sorry, you're not too old. You're not too young. It doesn't matter where you grew up, where you came from. Like, it can be done. You can, start building that generational wealth. You can start changing the way that your family lives and start living a life that you want. Or, there's just it. Honestly, to me, tech opens up so many doors, not just from a learning perspective, but from a financial perspective as well. We're one of the highest paid industries to date, so it's just opened up a lot of doors. And as a Latina in tech, and I don't know, my mom raised me to be very independent. And now it brings me joy to be able to care for her and care for those that I love, and that are close to me. So I'm very proud to be a Latina in tech.
I actually wanted to add a little bit to that, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that part at the end. I think for me, a lot of kind of owning this identity of being a Latina in tech comes with the work that we have to do to understand how these like labels and these identities really work for us, right? So with our identity and this role of being Latina women and the women in our households, right? It's like there is so much that we carry on top of just working on our careers and being career women, right? The expectation that we have to help our family. For many of us, in my case, I also am a first generation immigrant. So I also carry that identity with me of the struggles of assimilating in this country and adapting to a different lifestyle and different ways of doing things. And it's been very helpful to understand how that gives me many advantages, right? I have that sort of inspiration to work hard for my dreams and try things even if they make me scared, and fight for my rights if I have to, right? Because I have that push from like, hey, we made it all the way here and we're here for a reason and we want to be successful. There's also a lot of like heaviness that comes with it too that I have to work through as well, right? Like the imposter syndrome or like self-doubt or like all these different things that are like reminders of like, okay, you took a different path, like your life has taken a different path, but you can still do these things that that mentality that we had of like the rich white guy. It's like you can do those things too, right? Even if you're the immigrant, even if you're Latina, even if you're a woman, they shouldn't be exceptions. So I wanted to mention that as well.
Yes, exactly. Shout out to the first gen Latinos.
Some, yeah, it's a lot of experiences. Definitely it is. What would you say is the best advice you can give a Latina who's interested in tech?
Ooh, I'll take this one first. So there's a Latina out there that is interested in dipping your toes into tech. The first thing I can tell you, and the first thing that I will tell anyone, whether you're Latina or not, is talk to people. Talk to as many people as you can. Doesn't matter what they do in tech, but get a lay of the land that way. You never know who knows what about who, or it's like the biggest cheese man in the world. Just talk to people. You get so much information from, the way people think, the way that they approach things. Everyone has a different strategy to get into tech. And the only way you're going to learn that, and the only way you're going to know about opportunities that may or may not be posted on job boards, is if you talk to people. And that is the biggest piece of advice I can give. Talk to people, not just one person. Don't just go to one meetup. Don't talk to an array of people. Also, be prepared to put in the work. If this was easy, everyone would do it, and everyone would be making, well over six figures all the time. But no, right? So this is really, it's really difficult stuff. It can be mentally taxing. You have to be your biggest cheerleader and know and believe in your heart that you can do it as long as you're willing to put in the work.
Absolutely. I think for me, there's this big realization that I've had being in tech, being in this group, meeting different people and making those connections. It's a very welcoming and friendly space. I can honestly share that I've never had an experience where I've met somebody working in tech that has not offered to help, has not answered a question kindly, hasn't just been open to a conversation when I've approached and I've had that curiosity. So take advantage of that. Use that to your advantage, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to make connections. For me, I really benefit from being in community, like Hispanic hackers, or like having a team of people at work that I know I can go to and I can ask for advice or questions. Don't think that you can do it alone. You don't have to. I think it's harder if you were to do that, take that approach. Seek communities and seek spaces close to you where you can feel comfortable enough to interact with people and ask questions and have advice, so that you're not navigating that process alone. The other thing that has helped for me is there's so much in tech. There's so many different roles that you could do with different types of skills. For me at this point, I don't think I know them all yet, and they seem kind of endless. Every day I feel like I learn something new, something different that people do in tech. And so if you're feeling like something intimidates you, or I'm interested in tech, but I'm scared of coding or this or that, there's a lot. Do your research, ask questions, watch videos, familiarize yourself so that you can know what the opportunities are out there. I think that's very important as well.
No, absolutely. Asking questions is really important. You never know who's experienced what you're going through, and might have an answer that's going to streamline that solution for you. So definitely. So what are some misconceptions you had about tech before you started working in the tech field?
I think for me, like, we might have answered that one at the beginning. I think definitely like I mentioned, like the math thing, I was definitely intimidated by that, honestly. I think I had also a very limited idea of what tech was. And my main experience kind of being familiar with it was watching my husband teach himself how to code. He's interested in that. He likes to like build computers and those kinds of things. And it was like, all I knew is really what I watched him do. And that's why when I met the group of Hispanic hackers and I started hearing them talk about all these different things that they do, I was like, wait a second, what's all this stuff? Like, I don't understand. So that was a misconception for sure. I just was so unaware of how big the field is, and realizing now that everything is like incorporated with tech. It could be like an educational thing or a nonprofit thing. Somehow it's involved with tech. Like, tech is everywhere. So I recently made a friend in the boot camp that had an art major, and she was able to get a job over other people that were more qualified with the coding aspect, because the company is like an art tech company. And they really wanted and appreciated the fact that she was bringing that art major background. And that was mind blowing to me, because it's so interesting to see that you could really do tech in all types of fields. So that was, I think, one of the biggest ones for me as well.
I think for me, the like Laura mentioned, the math was definitely something that I thought, but very quickly learned that it wasn't. when it came to coding. But when it came to coding and software engineering, software development, I had this notion that, okay, I'm going to build like an entire Alexa device by myself. I don't know why. I thought that that's just how it works. And I was just going to get assigned this one device and I'm going to work on it for like a year and that's it. That's all I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to see the whole thing come to fruition and it's going to be my baby. Well, no. That is not how it works. Everything gets broken up into little tiny pieces, and then all the teams take a little tiny slice of the pie, and then someone somewhere down the line puts it together, i.e., me now. But yeah, I just thought that I didn't realize that tech was as collaborative as it is. I thought it was very individualistic. I thought that I grew up playing sports. As a kid and everything. So I was used to working as a part of teams and everything. But every time I had seen or heard of like a software engineer, it was like the dude with the hoodie, right? You can barely see his face and he's just like typing away. So, you know, it was interesting to me how collaborative it was. Like pair programming was like, what is that? Why? You know, and it was really nice though to learn how you can work in teams and how everyone kind of just bounces ideas off each other and brainstorming sessions and sprint retrospectives and that's honestly one of the things that I really love about being a software engineer was how collaborative it actually is. And unfortunately, what I didn't like about it was the fact that I didn't get to own an entire, like a larger chunk of what a project was. That's something that I was passionate about, or a particular feature that I was passionate about. You only got a small slice of the pie. Of course, now I'm speaking from Amazon experience. Of course, if you start your own business and you start your own startup, well, all of it is yours, right? But that's just my initial experience with software engineering.
Very cool. I know they say do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I know you both talked about how different backgrounds, you came from different backgrounds or whatnot, but yeah, to find something that you like and then you can jump into tech or in coding or whatever around that item, whatever that subject is, and you'll love it and you'll enjoy it and it'll be the best experience you have. What is something you wished you knew before you started in tech?
I think for me, I wish I would have known how nice people were. I really thought that it would be like a more like cutthroat industry, right? Where like you're out on your own and people are gonna try to like make you mess up, because I've been in other spaces where that has been the case. And you know, for me, I really admire people that work in tech. I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, like, because I thought I still do. I still admire people that work in tech, but it was, my admiration was coming from a place of me thinking that it was super, super hard and you had to be like a genius to work in tech. So I was like, you know, these people must be like super smart and maybe a little bit mean or not as friendly. And I was very wrong. I was extremely wrong. I've met people that are brilliant, but that doesn't affect their ability to like be so humble and so willing to have a conversation with you about something that for them is like so simple, right? Like the ABCs. So I think that's the biggest one for me, for sure.
Yeah, I was definitely pleasantly surprised to find that everyone was so nice too, Laura. You know, I walked into like Elmo and stuff, so I was like, oh, okay, they like to have fun and they're cool. That's great. I think for me, I wish I would have known how much of my own cheerleader I would have to be. Because I walked into a space where, like I said, I didn't find anyone that looks like me or had even similar experiences as me. And that's not to say that they don't exist. You know, there's Latina engineers everywhere, and I'm sure there's a Latina engineer veteran somewhere too. You know, but unfortunately, I didn't get to meet them early on in my career. And so I really wish I would have known how much of like, you know, in Spanish we say amarrarnos los pantalones. Like I had to like, you know, raise my pants up and tie the belt because I had to get ready and I had to, you know, like Laura had mentioned, advocate for myself and make my presence known, and know that it was okay for me to look at problems and look at products and look at ideas and processes differently than the consensus of the room. Just because I know something doesn't mean that everyone else in the room, whatever I think, maybe what I think is stupid, but it's something that needs to be said in the room, and having the courage to speak up, to say like, hey, why don't we try it this way? Or why haven't we done it this way? You know, and kind of challenging the status quo of the way things are done right now, is one of our superpowers. And actually, John just put something in the chat about code switching. You know, we do that a lot. Those Latinos that are bilingual, trilingual, you know, we have been, at least for me, especially being first generation, my parents still to this day barely speak English. So I've been translating my entire life, not just languages, but also life experience. You know, I've been translating my military experience into civilian terms. I've been translating now my tech experience into terms that they can imagine, that they can somewhat understand what it is that I do in English, and then now to Spanish. So it's really interesting how who we are in essence, and who the way we grew up, and the culture that we bring with us, how those are actually strengths that we bring to the table. You know, those are actually what's needed in the tech industry today. But I kind of wish I knew all of that before. I kind of wish that I had to, in some capacity, break the glass ceiling, you know, and still to this day, even on my team, although we're getting better in diversity, but all the way up through my VP, I am the only Latina in an organization that's well over 1,000 people. You know, there's other women of color, but it's mostly male and female Caucasians that are on the team. So why is it that in 2022 I am the only female Latina in the entire organization? You know, and here we are creating products for the masses. So there's more. We definitely need more Latinas in tech.
Yes, absolutely. What are a couple tips that to succeed in hold on, sorry. What are a couple tips to succeed in getting into tech?
I think for me, one of the main tips I could provide is staying curious and not being afraid of learning something that can seem intimidating at first, being open to the idea of just learning. Because I've realized in tech too, it's not all about like memorization or you're going to learn it all at once. You really are learning as you go. A lot of that, as Laura said, is collaborating, is helping each other out with different problems, and you never stop learning. There will always be different challenges. And those problems, those challenges are going to bring on the opportunity to seek those solutions and to learn something new. So if you're the type of person that gets overwhelmed by having a conflict or having a problem or seeing that something broke, like I think for me, what I've learned in tech, it's like things break all the time. And that's part of the process, right? And that's part of why we do the work that we do, to kind of fix things that or make them better. So definitely shift that mindset and don't be afraid of difficult things. Just be open and be curious, and you know that you have people that are going to support you and that it is a welcoming space for the most part. Another tip that I can give, and I think this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about feeling strong in your identity as a Latina, is have a moment with yourself to identify maybe what insecurities you're holding on to, or what kind of baggage you've been carrying in regards to your identity as a woman, and a Latina. I think when you do the work to find strength in that, as opposed to feeling like perhaps you're not going to feel welcomed, or you're going to be discriminated against, or it's not going to be a good experience because of those identities, I think it gets more challenging. I think we, in the way that we talk, in the way that we show up in the workplace, it's very easy to identify if those like insecurities exist. So for me, the moment I was able to kind of analyze that in myself and tackle that, I noticed that that confidence, that newfound confidence that I had gained, showed up in the way I did my work and the way I spoke with coworkers and my ability to risk and become innovative and be the person in the meeting that's giving ideas as opposed to just sitting there and being quiet because I was scared of speaking. So that's another tip as well. And then the other one is know that there are a lot of learning resources out there. In my journey so far, as I'm learning how to code, I'm realizing that the resources are kind of endless. There's so many videos that explain one concept like in so many different ways. There's so much reading material. There are a lot of people that are willing to sit with you for 20 minutes and explain something to you if that's how you learn best. But take advantage of that. And if you're feeling stuck on something or want to familiarize yourself more with something before you go on an interview or something, just know that there's so much out there that you can learn from and take advantage of those free opportunities as well.
Thanks so much, Laura. That was a lot of really great tips and resources. And you're so right. There's such a plethora of resources out there. They truly are endless. I remember getting that feeling when I first started to code. I was like, there's so much, I don't even know really where to start with you know, how to start coding or anything like that. So absolutely share that sentiment that there's just a lot. It's a lot of information. My teacher used to say that we stand on the shoulders of giants because those that were coding before us created all of this. And here we are just adding to what they initially created, you know, from zeros and ones to Zoom and filters and all this other stuff. So, yeah, so as far as tips, I actually have 3 very concise ones that I think cover a lot of just my philosophy of getting into tech. Is the worst thing, and the first one is like the worst thing they can say is no. At the end of the day, no matter what, the worst thing that they can say, whoever they are, is no. You know, so whether that's you pitching your idea, whether that's you applying for the job and getting rejected, whether it's, you know, not getting into some kind of internship, whatever it may be, you know, the worst thing that can seriously happen is they say no. Cool, on to the next one. You know, figuring out how to take that rejection or take that roadblock and figuring out how to break through that roadblock is what makes us who we are. And I think, at least coming from a first gen, it's what my parents did when they came to this country. You know, they saw that there was roadblocks everywhere in their home country and looked for a way out. And even if that meant sacrificing their current life that they had and going into the unknown to a completely different country, whether they came here legally or illegally, and possibly risking their lives just so that their offspring and the future of their family, they had better opportunities, they went with it as well. So I feel like I haven't had to go through that. And to me, it's a way to honor them is if someone tells me no, okay, how do I get to the yes? At the end of the day, the worst thing they can say is no. So how do I get to the yes? What is it that I need to do within myself to make this person say yes or create another opportunity to get to what I need to get to? The second one is to be coachable. You know, in this industry, because it's so collaborative, there can be some, and as nice as everyone is, and I agree with that, everyone is nice, but at the same time, we can, as engineers, get so in our heads, you know, and I think being coachable is really important to be able to learn from other people and understand that there is a million ways to solve one problem. And one problem in one way may be more efficient than the other, but it also may have some other trade-offs in other areas. So just being able to absorb from other more experienced engineers, and also experienced engineers being able to see the fresh perspective from a newer engineer as well is important. So being coachable at all levels, I think, is very important. And then lastly, be your biggest cheerleader. You know, really learn and practice positive self-talk, because that was one of my biggest struggles personally. Was I wanted everything to work quickly. I wanted my code reviews to be perfect, and I would disappoint myself when they weren't perfect, you know, and then I'm like my worst critic. So I really, really had to practice and learn how to speak kindly to myself and be my biggest cheerleader and understand that like nobody's perfect and you are not a machine and that's perfectly fine. So those would be the three for me, the three tips.
Yes, absolutely. Next one I have is, what are a few or a couple resources that you recommend? It could be a book, it could be a course, it could be a website that you would recommend to anybody in tech or especially women in tech and Latinos and Latinas.
I know Laura created a slide that has some really helpful resources. I have found the Latinas in Tech group to be very helpful because that was one place where I was able to learn a lot about different roles in tech. And I've really benefited from different events that they do, kind of like this one where they have different speakers show up. And I've been able to hear from a lot of very successful women in tech that are Latinas. And that's been very, very exciting and inspiring to me because they're like role models. They're people I can look up to. And through the Latinas in Tech and through their events, I've been able to find those women and follow them on social media and stay aware of the work that they're doing and their success. And it's something that I can just come across every time I'm on my phone and just kind of read about their success. And it's like a little spark of inspiration every time I see their work, and I can identify with the fact that they're Latinas or first gens or immigrants. Like that's very exciting for me every time I see them. So definitely check that one out. And Laura, do you have any to share?
Yeah, I think a few of them are on this slide. I do tend to read quite a bit. I kind of wish I would have pulled the books from my library, but one of the ones that sticks out to me is called The Memo. I couldn't tell you the author off the top of my head, but I know it's called The Memo, and it's basically about how women of color can get a seat at the table. And books like that, of course, there's like Udemy, Coursera, LeetCode. Those are available to everyone, not just Latinas. But I honestly, for Latina women, and I think women in general, we tend to be more about that community. I think community really, really affects us. If we look at like, not to say that men don't need community, but in the context of this meeting, I think how like people say when you raise a child, it takes a village. It's kind of like that. To be in tech and to be a Latina in tech, it takes a village, and it's really, really important to seek out that community, to seek out that tribe of Latina women that you, like Laura said, that you can look up to. I know that I feel amazing when I'm in a room full of successful Latinas and Latinos who are familiar with the struggle. I also talk to and sort of mentor veterans as well. And it's also a completely different vibe when I'm in a room full of veterans. We speak a little bit differently, and the acronyms come out, and of course the cursing comes out, and it's just a different part of who I am. So it's really important to utilize these nonprofits that exist for a reason. They exist so that we can all share knowledge and share resources. I don't exactly have like a list per se of like books that you must read or things like that. I do tend to read a lot more like self-help books. Right now I'm reading Atomic Habits, things like that. So yeah, that coding interview though, the cracking the coding interview, that one's pretty good. It's very intense, I think, for a beginner. At least I found it to be, but it definitely prepares you, I think, for what to expect at an interview. But yeah, so that's what I have for resources.
All right. Now something fun. What kind of hobbies do y'all have outside of tech?
Do you want to go first, Laura?
Sure. Hobbies outside of tech. Quite a bit actually. So I take salsa lessons 3 times a week. So that's been taking up quite a bit of my time. What else? I like to paint, burn pizza apparently because that's what I did earlier. So I do like to cook, but on occasion I do burn stuff because I just forget. Um, what else? I like to paddleboard. The guys have seen paddleboarding me and Chico, my dog, which you guys all have seen in the pictures. It's a little fluffy black dog. Paddleboarding is still a thing. I am out in Orlando now. I recently moved about less than 2 months ago. So I've been exploring the city quite a bit. I'm a huge Disney nerd. So my family lives out here, so it's been really fun to hang out with them. I also do some real estate investing, and I'm actually working on quite a few side hustles, possibly a podcast with the other Laura. We're going to try it out and see some more to follow. Lots of passions and interests. I do some painting as well. Yeah, lots of hobbies outside of tech, for sure.
Yeah, I love them all. I'm ready to see your salsa skills. Got to go out to Orlando and try that out. I also have a lot of hobbies. I consider myself like a very creative person, so I really love doing like digital illustrations and drawing. I love painting as well. I love like scrapbooking. That's a fun activity for me. I like rollerblading, and ever since I moved to Austin, I've been really enjoying being in the outdoors. So I've tried the paddleboarding, really enjoy that. I really like hiking as well, just spending some time in nature. And I like knitting. I learned how to knit in college and find it to be like a very relaxing activity. So it's an opportunity for me to kind of wind down and just create something from scratch. It's really fun. I also like reading, and I like to travel and see new places and spend time with the people that I love.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one. I like to travel too.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So, what's next for you?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I'll take it first. For me, I think right now I am in a good place career-wise. I think the team that I'm on and the work that I do, I've kind of figured it out. I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I know what's expected of me. I'm definitely on the path to look for that next promotion. But I think as far as what's next is a lot of those side projects, those passion projects that I want to get off the ground. As you know, James knows, like there's been some people that have reached out here locally in Orlando, that want me to create websites for them. And I thought, okay, maybe that's something I can do on the side, for smaller businesses. So that might be in the podcast idea is great. There's a lot of little passion projects that I want to get off the ground that I actually am blessed enough to have time to do it right now. Also, I think I miss more technical work. So maybe not this year, but definitely next year, look into getting into more technical product management or program management. Just not sure in what space just yet, as far as I may or may not continue with Alexa, but I do think I miss working with engineering teams, because right now I work with not just engineering teams. I work with legal and marketing and customer service and like all of the teams. But I kind of miss just strictly working more technical. But yeah, I've definitely picked Eddie's brain, probably for the last 4 months or so, on what technical program managers do at Meta, and kind of been talking to other people as well just to see where I might land next. So who knows? Keep
That's
you all posted.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm really excited to finish my boot camp, see where I'm going to be a few months from now in terms of the code that I'm learning and what kind of opportunities that opens up. As I'm learning how to code, I'm becoming very intrigued in accessibility for people who have disabilities and making tech accessible to them, whether that's like physical or like invisible, like disabilities. So I'm curious about that space now, and I'm curious about the way that work kind of intersects with advocating for people with disabilities. And I think I'm curious in exploring that a bit more and learning more about it and seeing maybe where that takes me. But as of right now, I'm happy in the role that I'm doing. It gives me enough, it's challenging enough where I learn new things, but it's also gotten to a point where it's easy enough where I can utilize my free time and time when I'm not working to work on these side projects and other things that I'm passionate about.
Very cool. Very cool. I know accessibility is really interesting. I've been doing that too lately. If you've never tried it, guys, try using the try looking at a website without actually looking at a website. Use the screen reader if you get a chance. It will change the way you see the internet. Absolutely, will change things.
Absolutely. One of my first projects that I worked on when I was an engineer at AWS was to implement screen reading capabilities, which first of all, I was like, why is this not standard? Why didn't we do this like 5 years ago when this product launched? But anyway, I was happy to be able to put that into production and actually deploy it so that people that need to use a screen reader and or have to use a keyboard can actually use our product. And it baffles me that some things like this are not standard. Like, why are they not standard? Why are there products that are being shipped out and are not automatically accessible? So I definitely share that same sentiment with you, James and Laura, about how important and interesting it can be.
Oh yeah, talk about total game changer. Changes like the way you see everything, and it's crazy. Like, yes, I think it's neat. Well, that is the end of our panel for today. I'd like to open up the floor. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'll stop sharing the live as well. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, feel free to just ask any questions to the ladies. I'm going to do my thing real quick, and I'll be right back. But feel free to ask any questions, guys.
I just want to say you both have a lot to be proud of.